So tonight's topic is breeding sheep and breeding goats. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rylan. Make sure you guys ask good questions, and thank you.
All right. So I know this is again, like Brian mentioned, probably a lot younger group and it's a lot smaller group, and that's for sure, which is totally okay. So if you guys have questions, feel free to hop in the chat box and ask me a question. Remember those questions, we're going to keep them kind of in regards to judging and stuff. If you have questions about your personal projects and whatnot, we can take care of those later, okay? So make sure you're staying on mute unless I ask you to unmute, and he is ready to rock and roll. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about some breeding sheep, all right? So jumping on there into the chat box, tell me a little bit about some good things we want to see in breeding sheep. What are we looking for in the breeding sheep? Thinking about our breeding fundamentals, what are we looking for in breeding sheep? Structure, absolutely. What's their rib shape need to be like? Does it need to be really tight and really hard, or does it need to be kind of full and big? What are we thinking about rib shape? Is rib shape important at all? Structure is really big because these gals are likely going to be out on pasture ground. But what about rib shape? Is that also important? Okay, so I'll kind of talk you through again. Thinking about our breeding fundamentals, okay? So we need to make sure we have them really well built. So when I talk about build, we talk about animals being built from the ground up, okay? So it's going to be wide and square at the ground, okay? That's really important. Have a big, wide, square chest. Make sure they're coming up real level, real correct as they're coming up to their up there into their hips and into their shoulders. That's really important. Rib shape, we got to make sure it's nice and round, okay? So when I talk about round rib shape, this is something that kind of has really become kind of a neat little trend and stuff that folks are doing with their sheep and their goats. Goats kind of came into a little bit later than sheep, but keeping those sheep, one, we wanted to have kind of that broody look. So we wanted to have some rib and some size and what we call some performance, right? Have that maternal look like a mama that's going to be able to really be able to get out and be able to maintain her body as she's rocking and rolling out on the pasture ground, making sure she can eat plenty of grass and roughage, just to make sure that she's going to be good to go and be able to maintain her body condition as well as be able to feed her lambs, okay? Because on average, we're probably going to see more double births in sheep and goats than we do single births. Okay, so it's important she's got to be able to feed two. Okay, so again, rib shape. Now, again, when we talk rib shape with sheep and goats, market or breeding, we wanted to have some really cool round rib shape. Okay, so it's kind of hard to think through a little bit and to visualize because, we like our cattle, be real big, deep, soggy, same with our pigs. But our sheep and goats, they don't have to necessarily be super duper deep. All right. Now, having some depth is good, but we want them to be really round, have a lot of curvature there to the rib shape. Okay. So, rib shape's good. Structure is important. Remember when we talk about structure, we need to be super, super level going down the top line and out of their hips. So, that hip should be kind of like a square, kind of like at an angle. Okay. We talk about sheep. And then, lastly, should they look like girls or look like boys? They should look feminine. Very good. Feminine to look like girls, right? I hope girls. I'm with you, Brian. I hope so too. Right. So we need to have a super long, really feminine, really elegant neck. Okay. They need to be pretty. We want our females to be pretty. All right. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and dive into our first class of today. So go ahead and get your note sheet ready to go. Just so you're ready to write down some notes and be able to get a placings down and figure some stuff out. Okay. So the first class is going to be breeding is going to be Hampshire ewes. All right, Hampshire ewes. Got some Hampshire ewes for you. All right, again, Hampshire ewes. Now, what do we know about Hampshire ewes? What color are they? Are they black-faced or white-faced? What do we know? Throw it in the chat box there, folks. Are they black-faced or white-faced? What do we know about Hampshire ewes? Hampshire females. Or just Hampshire sheep in general. Because I know they're not belted like pigs, because that would be funky. What do Hampshire ewes look like? What color their face is? What color their legs? Good. They're going to be black-faced sheep. Okay, I got a lot of folks jumping on saying white. Now, when I'm talking about sheep, remember, most of the time their wool is going to be white. So we have to talk about their face color. So they're going to be black-faced sheep. Okay, they're going to be black-legged, and they're going to have what we call a wool cap. So they're going to have, it's probably going to be sheared off, but you're going to be able to see that there was once some wool there up on top of their head. Okay, so they can grow some wool up on their head. And a big distinction that I found in my experience between a Hampshire and a Suffolk, okay, because Suffolks are also black-faced, okay? A Suffolk's usually going to have some longer ears, and then they're also going to have a lot less leg hair, that leg wool, and we call that leg wool shag. Okay, so it's something we like because we can really grow it out big and fluff it up, and really make sure that it helps the animal just look stouter and just bigger footed there at the ground, which is important because we don't want to have frail, skinny-legged sheep out running the hills of New York. Okay, that would be terrible. All right, we don't want it to break a leg or something like that real easy. So here we go, Hampshire ewes, our first one. Number one. And yes, that is a big sheep. So number one, first thing I'm noticing, okay, so she's a Hampshire. So she should have some big bone, going to be probably hopefully a pretty heavy muscled kind of gal. First thing I'm noticing, this one's really level. She's really, really level and looks like she's really square in her build. So I talk about her squareness out of her hips. You could honestly take, I mean, that is like almost a perfect 90-degree angle. All right. So she's looking really, really square out of her hip, which is awesome. Looks like she's really square coming down her top line. All right. And then her neck looks like she's got some extension up here. I think she could be a little bit higher, a little more elevated there in her chest. On her neck could probably come up a little bit longer, but I think overall that's a really well-built one. She still looks pretty feminine. She looks like a girl. Okay, she could be improved. She could be a little bit more what we would call refined about her head, neck, and just be a little bit cleaner and more extended up there. Okay, but I like her structure. I look at her ribs. Okay, that is a really good ribbed ewe. Okay, she starts real deep in her forerib. I'd like her to fill out a little bit deeper there in her rear flank, but that's being nitpicky. I think overall this is probably a really good sheep that I'm going to like. She's definitely has those Hampshire characteristics, some good leg wool, and got a little bit of that wool cap, so it's going to be cool too. She looks like a Hampshire. All right. Okay.
So Rylan, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So my son Fenton, who's sitting here, has Hampshires, and he shows slick sheared Hampshires, not fitted.
Mm.
So there really is not a difference, right? It's just how they're going to appear.
It's it's how they're going to appear. So again, so in Kansas, I mean, we don't do any haired. Everything is slick sheared. We still grow the leg wool. The shag is definitely a big part, but
Correct. The legs and the head are still there, but
Mhm.
there's no
Yep.
fitted.
Yep. So, and Brian brought up a good point. So this ewe is what we'd call fitted. So she does have some wool on her. That's why she looks so square. That's just kind of how she's put together. And this is what we would call more of a frame sheep. So this is going to be some class. We're going to see a class here, kind of some more frame sheep. So they're real big, real tall. They have their wool on them. So they're going to have that wool out and fitted real good. Okay. It's a good thing to bring up there. Keep that in mind. All right. So here we go. Number two. Kind of taking in our first impressions here, okay? So first impression for me, something I'm noticing right away, this is just kind of one that just doesn't look just quite as stout and just quite as broody as the last one. Remember, I use the word stout and I use the word broody in terms of, a female she doesn't look like a dude, okay? She still looks maternal. She looks a little bit, but she's got some robustness to her. Very good. She does have, that's exactly right. She's got just some real skinny legs up under, so she doesn't have a lot of bone, not a lot of stoutness, which tells me she probably also doesn't have an immense amount of muscle. Okay, now remember, muscle is kind of a later priority when it comes to our females and stuff, but we do have to recognize that some muscle would be good. Um, so we got to make sure that that is good and taken care of, because then they're going to pass that trait on to their babies. But I will say she does have a really long, really pretty neck. She does have some depth and some rib shape here, but you kind of can really see here from her hip. See how it kind of goes downhill a little bit there? So that's something to note. She kind of gets rounder out of her hip. She's frailer footed. She maybe just doesn't quite blend together and just blow you away with just a really neat feminine appearance, not feminine, really neat maternal appearance. Okay, so I think there's definitely some things to note on that one that, I'm not crazy about, but there's some things to appreciate. She's really feminine up through her head. She's got a really robust and, excuse me, not robust, really full rib there. But she does get a little bit, she protrudes out a little bit there through her chest. Really kind of going to be frailer footed and just wants to start kind of round out there in her hip. So very good. All right, and I got the next one here. Okay, number 3. Again, showing a lot of those Hampshire characteristics. So take her in a little bit. Sorry, one of my best friends is going to the hospital to get checked out. She's due to have a baby at any point, so that's why I'm kind of checking in on my phone a little bit. She just texted me that she's going in to get checked out again. So exciting things. But back to the sheep again, talking about mamas and being maternal. Okay, good. So again, looking at this one as we kind of take her in. That is a really neat one. I think she looks really similar to the 1U when we initially looked at them. Again, a really big, bold kind of rib shape. She's super neat and robust there through her middle, and I think she's carrying quite a bit of power, quite a bit of muscle shape here through her hip and hind leg. Okay, really appreciate that kind of stuff. Very good. She does have a very level, very, very level back. Okay, kind of the livestocky way to say that is she's super level down her top line. So very good. Good observation. Very level, put together very nicely. Also, I appreciate this one. Notice how her chest is kind of like comes up at a curve of like almost elevated up. I appreciate that a lot. So she's super duper really tall, really elevated up in her chest floor. She's really deep here in her forearm and really carries it back really full. And she's really balanced in her lines. When you talk about her lines, we're talking, really leveled on her top and carries it really level down her bottom side as well. Something that I appreciate about this gal as well that I maybe didn't quite notice on the first one, she's really long and extended up through her neck. You can really see a lot of length, an extension that she's carrying there all the way from her chest floor up to her muzzle. And here in her jawline, she's really, really refined, really, really long necked, super elegant, and really, really feminine. I think that's just a really extra cool piece about this gal to really make note of. Okay, so again, that's number 3. We're going to look at number 4. Kind of take her in. Okay, this one I'm not big on either. Okay, I think again, this one's got some real soft, deep-sided rib, but she doesn't have quite the same round rib shape as the other females. She's definitely comes in a little bit here and is quite not nearly as powerfully constructed. So she's not as wide set in her pins, so she's not as wide in her hips, which I'm not going to say that means she's going to have trouble having lambs, but it's something to note that's a good characteristic we want to see in our females to help them just be set apart, set a lot wider, just to be able to rock and roll them and have lambs real easily. Okay. Something else to notice. I know it's kind of dark here with the dark mulch down there in her dark legs, but she really doesn't look to be that wide as she comes to the ground. She looks like she's kind of closed up and really kind of narrower. So I don't really like that. I think that's kind of one that, she needs to be built better as far as how she's put together in her length and her construction You know, she's real tight up there at the ground. She's not coming to the ground with very big feet and bones. So someone noted earlier, one of our other females had, you know, some really skinny legs. I'd say the same thing here. We got some skinny legs. Now, one thing that I know about this girl, it's a little bit different here. She's carrying a little bit more condition. Okay. And remember, what condition refers to fat. So the amount of extra, you know, fat and preservatives basically that females put on. And we want to make sure that she's got some condition to her on a ewe. Okay. Just like with our other breeding females. Now, do you want her to be fat? Heck no, tech no. That's no good. We don't want a fat lady, but we want her to be in some good condition. And I think this is where that one maybe has something to note of, you know, she's maybe in better condition. I wouldn't say this one is in bad condition. I think she gets a little bit chuffier here up about her head and her throat. That's one that I think we need to trim up a little bit there. But I think overall, she's probably carrying a bit more condition to her than another ewe in this class. Okay. And then I'm sorry, guys, on this class, I don't have them all together, but she's right there. So again, we'll go back through them. So number 1. Number 2. Number 3. And number 4. Go ahead and get your last bit of placings down. Okay, looks like we got a lot of people saying a lot of the same things. Okay, and that's good. That's good. We appreciate the consistency. That usually means we're probably in the right range of things. Okay, so real quick, first thing we got to do is find a pair of sheep. Okay, so real quick, what's my pair of sheep? What's my top pair of sheep? What do we think? Someone hop on and tell me. Tell me which are my pair of sheep. I want to hear it on the video. 3 and 1. Very good. Who can get on the video and tell me why that's my top pair? Who wants to get on and talk? Come on, guys. You can do it. Just tell me why you think they're the better sheep. Aubrietter, I bet you could do it. No? Someone tell me why they think those two are the best sheep. Okay. Well, I'll tell you why I think those two are the best sheep. I think those are simply the better constructed of the two, okay? They're built right at the ground. They're just simply stouter. They're more opened up. They're bolder and a lot more robust about their rib shape and just carrying a lot more width from end to end. Now, I used a lot of terms there that maybe aren't super, you know, feminine type when we talk about some sheep. But remember, these are gals that are going to be passing on these traits to their offspring, and they're likely going to have some boys too. So we need to have some stouter made kind of females who still offer a really feminine look. So I agree. 1 and 3 are definitely ones that need to be in the top pair. Okay. So then that leaves us with 2 and 4. So 2 and 4, again, they're two very different kind of sheep. I think they're similar in their quality, just, you know, being some lesser lower end type sheep that I wouldn't necessarily want to take back to my flock, but a pair of sheep that I think definitely have some characteristics so we can appreciate one being a little bit different than the other. So for me, number 2 is a sheep that I think, again, carries just a bit more femininity, throughout her. I think there's a skeletal issue on that one. She gets a little too round out of her hip for me, and it's just way too frail at the ground. But again, one I think offers, at least some quality characteristics there, but maybe just a little bit. But she's really the structural concern for me. Coming there to number 4, I think number 4 is one that I think offers a completely different side of things. She's maybe just a tick leveler there down her top. Really just wants to be a bit square out of her hip and dock. But again, one who I think just really comes to the ground really narrow and really frail. But I appreciate this one's carrying just a tick more condition. I'm a little bit concerned at how lean the number 2U is in comparison. All right, so I think we've got 2 sheep that really pretty easily take the class. They're really high quality, really up there, really bold and maternal, broody looking gals. Okay, they're really nice brood ewes. And then 2 that have some very different differences. You got a really lean one who's really just not quite right in her skeletal design. One that's probably not the best in her skeletal design and needs to be opened up more. But she's not quite, as crazy lean to the point that I'm a little bit concerned about her ability to maintain her own condition. Okay, so the cuts, so the official placing of this class, we're going to start 3, and then we're going to go 1, and then on the bottom, I'm going to go 4-2. Okay, so again, I'm going to do 3, 1, 4, 2.
Can you show those again to us?
Yep.
One.
Yes. Sorry, I meant to do that. All right, so again, we're going to go 3. Okay, so number 3 is 1. Number 3 is the best. All right, number 1. And I go number 4, then number 2. Okay, so let me talk you through that a little bit. So I think a really easy place to start is that top pair of really attractive females who are really nice and opened up for mid to end, as I mentioned previously. But for me, what really takes number 3 over the second place she's just a tick more extended and more feminine out of her front. They're through her front 1/3. She's really shallow and elevated up through her chest floor and just carries into a really long and elegant neck. In addition to this, she just ties herself in really well balanced. They're really level in her lines and just carrying a really stout build that I can appreciate, just being really offering a lot of power there through her hip and hind leg and coming at the ground with a big foot and really having some circumference of bone. Appreciate a lot of things about the female. Again, we follow up with a very similar type female. I think she's another really great brood prospect who's really soft, really easy there through her middle, one who I definitely wouldn't be concerned about as far as maintaining her condition. This is one that maybe just needs to be a little bit more refined about her head and neck. Just trim her up there through her neck and throat. I'm just, if she's able to, get on a buck on her, that's just going to be able to really extend out that neck a bit further. But again, a really great ewe who's got some cool pieces. I really appreciate that one. It's certainly one that I would take back to my own herd. Okay. And again, we cut you 4 on the top, so they felt pretty strongly about making sure that you get those girls right. Okay. And then they're in the middle. Okay. So they went 1, followed by 4. Okay. Now, big distinction between here. Okay, so here for 4, as I talked a little bit earlier, this is definitely a heavier condition kind of female who's definitely looking more the part of a brood ewe as far as her overall condition and her appearance. For me, she's just to take leveler down her top in comparison to the ewe that rounds out the class. She does need to be trimmed up there through her head and her neck. Her throat just gets a bit too chuffy there for me. She's carrying too much there, skin and extra condition there through her throat latch. And one who I think, again, does need to be opened up there at the ground. She wants to come together and comes down on a really frail foot and bone. But again, one who I think is offering some better pieces as far as her overall condition. An ability to maintain her body score. Just, again, one that needs to be really extended out, trimmed up, and just really blown apart from end to end. Okay. And to round her out there, you've got the 2U. This is a female who, again, you appreciate her for her feminine look. She's got a really, really round and robust rib, but unfortunately, that's kind of where she stops. She's one who needs to be redesigning her skeleton. She gets too round out of her hip, comes to the ground at probably the frailest foot and bone of the class, and one who just kind of looks to be just one that needs to be changed in a lot of different places and just really take that one, shallow up her rib shape there through her chest, excuse me, her chest floor, shallow that up and elevate her up a bit and just kind of make her just really get her to just kind of blow apart and just take care of some other stuff to be a little bit better. Okay. So again, the class, the officials are 3, 1, 2, 4 with cuts of 4, 4, and 3. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on that one? Brian, I feel like you do.
No, just had to go back and look at number 3/1, right? Like three just
Yep.
had that femininity of the neck and the cleanliness, especially in that front end. And she definitely had the larger bone structure in the foot and leg. So, right,
Mhm.
I just had to look at it again to be convinced.
Yeah. No, and I'll be the first to admit when it comes to my breeding stock, I'm okay taking kind of a what I would call, maybe a woofy one or who's real fluffy, just kind of really, really super deep and awesome brood prospect. Give up a little bit of the looks just because I know, commercially we don't eat pretty. But I do
Correct.
understand, in this kind of setting, we're really going to be emphasizing, that feminine look and that femininity. And she has not only a really nice, really bold and round rib shape, but she also carries a lot of femininity to her. So, but that's definitely one that I think yeah. If you're out here raising sheep, you're going to be like, well, I mean, sure, she's pretty. She's got, plenty of rib,
Yeah,
but
and
got
I
more.
think that's why I don't mind number 4 either, right? Like I definitely know she's not over that, but right, like she's solid. She's definitely a solid you,
Yeah,
right? And she's gonna make some
not a
solid
looks.
babies. But
Yeah.
she's not gonna be that show.
Olivia, to answer your question, would I change anything on 3? Nope. I really like that sheep a lot. That is a picture from quite a ways back, so I definitely think now we're having with a bit more leg shag, just to make him just look a little again. Just it gives him a cooler look to him. That as I joke with my judging kids or whatever, I'm like, we like him with the boots with the fur. Okay, it's just fun with all that, but very good. Okay, so here we go. So that was Hampshire ewes. Okay. We're going to switch over and do another class of sheep, or do you guys want to? Yeah, we'll switch over to our other class of sheep here. Okay. Let me get that. Hold on. Okay. So this next class, all right. This next class, again, we're going to have some different sheep here in the sense that they're going to be older. Okay. So this class is called yearling ewes. Yearling ewes. So on your yearling ewes, you're definitely going to have some differences in breeds here. Okay. And I know that's not traditionally how it is, but I'll be honest, I put this class together and I just kind of had a lot of fun with it. So I think it's kind of fun to see some different colors, some different stuff, and everything else. So we've got some different colors, and I think it's good to also see some different breeds and just help you get a little bit more of some stuff to just understand. Okay. Super cool. All right, here we go. Number 1. First off, can anyone tell me, you can jump in the chat box there. What breed of sheep is this? It's a white-faced sheep. Yes, it's a yearling ewe, but what breed? What breed? Okay, so that's going to be a Dorset. Okay, a Dorset ewe. So Dorset is spelled Dorset. Dorset. Okay, a Dorset ewe. All right, so we got our Dorset girl here. Okay, first thing I'm noticing, I think she's really complete. I want to talk about one that's complete. I think she checks a lot of my boxes. So I think she's got some really good rib shape going on for her. I think she gets a little bit easier there in her top line, and maybe that's just how she's standing a little bit. But again, I think a really square one who's built right. She's got some power here through her hip and hind leg. Definitely got a feminine neck. She could be a little bit trimmer and more refined about her neck, That's all right. Again, I think she's really elevated about her chest floor. One knock for me, I definitely think she needs to be coming at the ground with some bigger foot and bone. And I think that's not something that's super characteristic of the Dorset breed, just being really, really stout footed. But again, I think a neat looking sheep who's got some cool pieces and stuff like that. All right. I think that's a pretty good one with how she's put together. Coming on here, I've got what we call this is going to be a Suffolk. Okay. They're a funny breed of sheep. You spell Suffolk Sufffolk. When I taught my sixth graders about sheep, they were like, "That's how you say Suffolk? That's Suffolk." I'm like, "Yeah, but we say it's Suffolk because Okay, you're Suffolk or Suffolk sheep. All right, you're Suffolk. Okay, kind of taking her in a little bit. I think this is one that's got plenty of rib, plenty of body. Her neck is real refined, but it's really short. Okay, I don't really love the front 1/3 out of that gal. I think she's got some really long legs, got plenty of growth and performance to her. But we're coming at the ground again with some really frail feet. And I'm not saying we eat bone and that's the end all be all, but again, it just helps us with our overall appearance of just being a stouter made kind of sheep. Again, I think that one's got some good rib in her. I think she's built pretty square, but she's kind of a frailer looking gal who's maybe just not quite as put together as I'd like her to be. There's just some pieces I would change about her. Okay, again, it's going to be a Suffolk. A Suffolk. Oops. All right, Brian just said that the Zoom did something. Can you guys still hear me? Okay, cool. I'm gonna keep going on. We're just gonna assume that Brian's locked out and he'll figure it out, hopefully. All right, but again, that's your Suffolk. Okay. All right, number 3. Okay. So this is a black sheep. And I know technically we'd call it a piebald or something, but we're gonna call it a natural today. Okay, a natural sheep. So natural is gonna be that blue color, which is kind of gives you some darker wool. So again, most of the time we're just gonna see a natural type sheep. Okay, so again, a natural. Okay, a natural sheep. Okay, so again, first thing I'm noticing on this gal, she's got lots of cool pieces to offer. She's really, really bold and opened up through a rib cage, really round on how she puts it together. Appreciate how level that one is down her top. And she's carrying a lot of power there through her hip and hind leg. Okay, so we like a lot of things about this cow. Comes at the ground, quite a bit of bone, quite a bit of shag, and still gives you a pretty neat, elegant look. I'd like to push this front end. I like to push her breastplate just a little bit back. But again, I think she's got some really neat pieces and looking pretty good with that. Okay, so that's your natural. It's your natural. Okay, and here we go. Number 4. Number 4 is going to be another Suffolk. Number 4 is going to be another Suffolk. Okay, so again, another really deep-bodied girl. Got a lot of mass to her. Probably not the prettiest gal in the whole flock. Okay, comes to the ground again, pretty frail. I'd like to stouten that one up quite a bit as far as where she is in her bone work, but she's got some pieces. But she's a little bit almost over conditioned for me. You can kind of see here on her tail, she's carrying some fat. She's got some fat deposits there with how she's put together. She's maybe just a little bit too conditioned, and she's kind of an older kind of gal. Okay, so great question. A yearling is essentially a ewe that is a year old. Okay, so a ewe that's probably getting ready to be bred and be able to rock and roll, or she is early bred. We're kind of just seeing the early stages of it, but yeah, they'll probably a lot of times they'll have like if they have a yearling class, some yearling ewes. Yeah, it'll usually be one breed or a bunch of white face sheep or a bunch of black face sheep. This class is kind of goofy just because I put some fun stuff together. But yeah, a yearling is talking about her age, not necessarily her breed. So within this yearling class, we have some different breeds that we're looking at. Okay. Very good question, though. All right. But again, kind of taking in some pieces of it. Okay. So I probably talked to this class a little bit too much, but you guys can kind of, we're going to go through them all here again. Again, number one. Number two. Number three. Number four. We'll go through them again one more time. So again, number one, make sure you're solid with your placing. Number two. Number three. Number four. I'm trying to text Brian here, guys. Okay, get your placings in. There's Brian. Okay, Brian, I'll go back through these sheep. I talked to the kids, they're all yearlings. We had a conversation about how yearling is kind of a reference to their age, not so much the breed. And I did tell them that usually we're going to have a class of, Hampshire yearlings or Suffolk yearlings or, Dorset yearlings, something like that. This just was kind of me having a lot of fun with the class, putting it together, just some goofy sheep all together. But again, so we got the number one, the Dorset. Number two, can be a Suffolk. Number three, we talked about this cow. Technically, I think you would consider this one a piebald, but we're going to call her a natural today just because we have the conversation about, blue sheep. Oftentimes they have kind of that darker colored wool. Number four. Okay, so we got their placing in. Okay, let's talk about them. Okay, so I think this class is kind of similarly put together in comparison, like our last class we just had. So I think there's a pair of sheep that are really just high quality females that really scream, pick me. I'm definitely the sheep of the class here. I really have some quality to me and everything else. Now, for me, I think my personal preference, I think one that is maybe is just a tick more to her. She's a bit bolder, she's a bit rounder. She's just simply got more to her and is stouter, just a little bit more opened up. It's going to be the natural sheep. All right. I think this is, again, one that's fitted out really cool. She's got a lot of width and dimension there from end to end. One who I think is really bold and robust about her rib shape. Just offers a super maternal and broody look there from the side. I think this is one that, if you had to change her shirt, shallow her up a little bit there through her chest floor. But again, one that I think offers a really feminine and refined look about her head and neck, especially in comparison to the amount of size and capacity this girl's carrying there throughout her skeleton. Again, one I think just screams a lot of quality, one who you definitely want to keep there in your flock as kind of a front pasture type. Now, nothing at all to take away from the Dorset ewe. I think this is, again, one who's really, really neat and really good in how she's put together. There's just maybe not enough of this one. She does have plenty of rib shape and plenty of power for her size, but one who I think in comparison just kind of slacks off a little bit. One who I think, again, just needs to be a bit bolder and more opened up there and just come at the ground with a bigger foot and bone just to be more successful there throughout her time as a brood ewe. But again, I think a Dorset who's got some really neat pieces, definitely going to be an asset to breeding program on down the line. Following it up, we've got two sheep that again are very different in type. You've got the pair of Suffolks there out to round out the class. You've got this really tall, high-performing female who's just kind of got some interesting pieces. Excuse me. Who a breeder can really select and really like about her. And then you've got the other ewe who's maybe just got to take more condition, but is a bit bolder there through her rib shape and just offers more comfort to a producer as far as kicking her out into a production environment where she's going to be on some grass and maintain her body condition. And for me, that's where it helps me to make the decision to use for to place over two. I think that's again one that has, a really long and level top, and I can appreciate some extra features about her. But for me, at the end of the day, she's simply the bolder ribbed one who's just simply more opened up and more sprung. Carries a bit more power there from behind, and one who I certainly would change in several aspects, but one who I think is just going to be more suitable when put out to production. Then the female we round out the class with. Again, I love the frame size and the tall build that this one's carrying, but unfortunately, she's just way too frail for me. This is one who I think just seems to be stepping down at the ground with much bigger feet and bone, just to give me more confidence when putting her out into a production setting. And in addition to this, she could be more feminine about her head and neck. She gets too short and coarse for me. I just want to really lengthen that one out a bit more just to give her a more flashy look and eye appeal. Okay, so again, the placings for this class go 3, 1, 4, 2. 3, 1, 4, 2 with cuts of 4, 6, and 3. Again, we place it 3, 1, 4, 2 with cuts of 4, 6, and 3. Anyone got any questions on that class? I know it's kind of different with all the different breeds, and these are some older ewes who are a little bit aged out. How do we feel about breeding sheep? Feel like we got it under control? Again, they're pretty similar to heifers. We're looking for some really stout made, some good made ones who are sound and good at the ground. Sorry, my laptop wasn't charging, but ones that are, really stout, good at the ground, really square built, are going to be able to go out into production setting and be really successful. Anyone got any questions about it? Well, let's move on to some goats. Goats are pretty fun. I don't like them, but that's just a personal thing. All right, let's look at some goats. Let's look at some goats. Okay, so we've got, is this class I want to do? I gotta look. Yes. Or no, the other one. Yes, I'm gonna start with this one. Okay, here we go. Breeding does. All right. Another thing to note, sometimes when we talk about sheep or goats, we talk about them as what we call weather dams. And so what that means, we're going to talk a little bit more so about some weather generators and stuff like that. But again, this is breeding does. Breeding does. I'm warning you. I put a bit of a curveball in there. But something I want to note too, consider all udders and vulvas as sound. Again, consider all udders and vulvas as sound. And I will explain that later on. But here we go. Number 1. Again, taking her in. So we got kind of a blaze face gal with that pretty traditional coloring. So again, when I talk about my notes, I talk about one of them being, she's blaze face, she's pretty traditional. Now she's put together. Appreciate some things about her. Really start to study her. I think she's got a really neat and really attractive front end up on her. I think she carries it down into a really big, full, maternal look there through her rib. And she's real level down her top, carrying a lot of rib shape, a lot of curvature there. I think some good things to appreciate. Okay, it's one that comes at the ground, pretty stout-footed. Really appreciate that about her. And then it kind of works onto the back, and I get a little bit concerned at just how round-hipped that one is. Okay, I think that's one that's just real round in her hip, and maybe just gets a little bit some extra set there to her hock. A little bit concerning to me, okay? But again, I think a really good looking goat who's got some really good pieces to her from end to end. Appreciate a lot of things. All right, again, that's kind of my thoughts on that girl. I think there's some good pieces, but definitely still some things maybe we got to be careful of. Okay. Number two. Now, this is what I said, consider all udders and vulva sounds. So with that, we do notice this gal has a split teat. Okay. So again, these are teats. This is how babies get milk and stuff. But this is split. So when you say we're going to consider it sound, that means we're going to just be okay. And we're going to, consider this one to be just one. Okay. We're going to overlook that part. Okay. But again, I think, this is what we call a paint doe. Okay. So we've got the number one was kind of a traditional coloring with a blaze face. Number two is what we call a paint doe. Okay, paint's kind of fun. I like the colored goats. I think they're pretty neat. Okay, but all right on. So there's our little paint doe. Again, she's given a real maternal, real broody appearance. This one just looks like a mama. Okay, she looks like she could be bred well and really do well out on a pasture. I think she's super tall and elevated up here through her chest floor. I really love how clean and tucked up in she is. She really just is really smooth and really, really well balanced. Really like, just how she's put together up through her head and neck. Super long, really refined.
Brian, can I ask a question? And I've been wondering this, and maybe everybody else has. So when you say tucked up in the chest floor, I know what you mean as far as you want it up, up tighter, right? That type of stuff. You don't want it deep, right? Coming from a dairy perspective, we want it nice and deep. Is there a reason why they want it up nice and tight, or is that what just they're looking for?
I think it's just kind of a sheep and goat thing of the sense of, you just want them really high and tight and really feminine. I think it's a looks deal. I don't think, and I think when we get to where our chests are kind of out protruding really big and sticking out, that really shows a lot of the maturity of the animal. And we don't want these girls to be super mature. We still want them to look young and youthful. And so I think that's where a lot of that comes from. So that's a great question, though. In difference from, market animals and market stock versus dairy stock. Very, very different. So we like ours to be extra pretty, really refined. We're silly like that. Okay. But very good. So again, I think this is one that just really carries things together, really smooth, really level. She's got a really long and level hip. I appreciate that about her a lot. I think she's got some really good things going for her. Okay. Very good. Number three. Okay, taking this one in. Okay. I think something to note right away. This is a really big and bold chested kind of gal. She's really robust and really opened up. I appreciate that a lot. She's really stout on how she's put together. This is one who I think it's a little bit too easy there in her top. But she's carrying a lot of really big opened up rib shape. She's really soft and easy there. Kind of steadier there in her pastern. She's maybe a bit weaker than some other females we've seen. And again, kind of like that first, she wants to get a little bit rounder out of her hip. But again, I think one that's really bold and opened up, and you appreciate kind of the more terminal type characteristics that she's carrying. Really, really neat in that way. But we got to be careful a little bit here in some different stuff with her structural build. But again, I think a female that's offering some pretty good stuff to her and everything. Okay, again, that's number 3. And then number 4. Now, I mentioned I threw a curveball. I did. So this girl is built completely different than some of the other females we saw. Now, this is what I would call very much a weather dam. Okay. So this is a gal that is definitely there to generate some weathers. So she's real cool, really elegant about her head and her neck. Really, really carrying a lot of power and dimension there from behind. Okay, lots and lots of legs. She's got a good level hip. Appreciate a lot of that about her. Comes at the ground with some real stout feet, big old bone on her. Again, just a very, very different type in comparison to the other girls that we've been looking at. Okay, so again, we go back through, we look at number 1. Okay, real cool, really neat neck. Nice soft middle there. Number 2, looking at him again. Number 3. Number 4. And then actually, I have a picture of them all together. I did get the goats together, not the sheep. Okay, so again, kind of making your final thoughts, your final impressions here. Got one that kind of sticks out a little bit there, but so where do you put her? Where do you put the one that's different? Definitely think we have some thinking going on here. Go ahead and get your placings in.
These kids are way more daring than I am because I have my placing, but there ain't no way I'm putting it down.
I know, this is a different class.
I actually am not far off from the kids, I don't think. So
Hey, well, here we go. Let's talk about it. So, first thing we got to do, it looks like most everybody rocked it, in the sense of finding 2 to win. Okay, guys, that's just a pretty elite type female. Again, we're calling her utter sound. And it's not the end of the world to have the split teats or the 2 teats there, but again, a really, really elegant female who's super broody and maternal in her appearance. Really appreciate how bold sprung she is there through her rib. And just comes at the ground really square and genuine from end to end. She's really opened up there in her chest floor. Appreciate how high and elevated that one is. Just how she's tucked up in through her front 1/3. Really, really elegant, really refined. And just again, I think this is a versatile ewe who could be used in a lot of versatile doe that could be used in a lot of different ways. I think one that again could go on to make some pretty neat looking weathers. Definitely going to be putting daughters back into the keeper pen. One who I think is really neat in that way. Appreciate a lot of good things about it. That's just a female that screams a lot of quality out there from end to end. Again, that's one that I would definitely want to put back in my herd. From there, I think we've got, for me, it's a pair of females that are just a little bit different. I think we've got kind of the weather made type female down in number 4, who's just really, really cool and refined about her head. She's carrying a lot of power and a lot of punch. There, as far as her muscle and her type, what do I appreciate for a lot of that? She still does have a big, bold rib shape that I think is definitely something you can't ignore. She's not been fed to be quite as heavier, to be as heavy condition as some of these other females. And I think that's something to take into consideration. And then for me, I think quite a few of you found number 1 to kind of also be in contention for that number 2 spot. Again, a really level, really elegant made female who comes at the ground with plenty of foot size and bone. For me, you just got to study this one a little bit there for hip structure. And for me, that's actually why I go ahead and follow up the winner with number 4. Okay. Again, I think 4 is just simply better built in her design and overall skeleton. And as she grows up and she matures, becomes an older ewe, I definitely think that's one that will really turn into kind of that softer, will kind of belly down a bit and have some softer build to her. But when we talk about one that's going to make some really, really neat looking wethers, it's going to be really fun and be able to put some heavy, powerful, constructed females as well back into the herd. Again, I love the front 2/3 of that one doe. Okay, she's real elegant, real elevated up through her chest. Really, really fun as far as how she is going down her top line. Really bold and deep. But for me, I just really question her hip structure. She's one who gets really round out of her hip. And that extra set to her hock really sets her apart for me. I just question her from a structural standpoint. Similar things can be said about the 3U. I think that's one that just simply, she's really bold and open up through her chest, and I don't question her stoutness at all. But one who I question a little bit from a structural point. She just gets too easy there through her top, really wants to break there behind her shoulder. And just again, one who's already starting to look like she's breaking down a little bit there, and her pasterns just getting a little lower set. I question her longevity in a production setting, being out on a pasture. One who also I think could stand to be lengthened a bit more there out of her head and neck, and this gets too coarse there for me as well. So again, they take it and they place it 2, so up here, 4, 1, 3. Okay, with cuts of 5, 4, and 4. Again, 2, 4, 1, 3, cuts of 5, 4, and 4. Now, I will be the first to admit the curveball dough there of kind of that weather made kind of thing was definitely difficult and definitely different. Okay. So for me, again, you got to study them for the whole picture, study them for their completeness, making sure that they're really what they need to be and have all the right pieces to be able to rock and roll and be successful in a production setting. And I think that's one that's still going to go on to be able to pass a lot of good on to future generations of does and then in a production type setting. Does anyone have any questions about this? I know it's a little bit different to kind of take that for you and get her going. Okay, I understand what you're saying she isn't not super pretty, but again, when we talk about that really round rib shape, again, I think that's one that does have some round rib shape, and I think she's deeper than you think she is, but she is really feminine too. It's just hard to see because she's kind of braced up on a kid right there. But again, I think that's one that's definitely different. I'm going to put in some different genetics there into a herd. Any other questions? Brian, did you make it out okay in that class?
I switched the middle pair. I
Okay.
don't love 4 just because I didn't think she had enough substance to me, but right, like uh I follow you.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's one judge's opinion as well. Okay. If you're going to follow the rule of type and kind, you're probably not going to use 4, but you're good. I definitely don't think you can bottom 4. I think that's a female who's got some real quality to her. Okay. All right. Here we go. Our last class of goats. And I think we might actually be ending a little bit early tonight, which I think works out pretty okay. So here we go. Bordeaux's. Okay. Sounds like a shoe store, Bordeaux's. So Bordeaux's again. So these are going to be from some females that are going to have that same kind of coloring and everything, same breed. Okay. But here we go. And I'm going to go do a lot better job of letting you guys kind of evaluate them first and kind of get your own opinions about stuff. And then we're going to rock and roll on. So here we go. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Do I have these grown all together? I do. And then here they are all together. So again, we'll go through them all individually so you can get just a really good look. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Here they are all together. Get your placings in. All right, let's talk these goats. Okay, here we go. So the first thing we see right here, we've got 2 that are a little bit different in color, and I think they're also different in kind. I think 1 and 2 are both definitely the places to start. It's a really high quality pair of females. Although we really kind of study them for some differences. They've got some give and take between the 2, but both a really, really good, really quality pair of brood females who are just carrying some really neat pieces as both. I think when you really study them and break them down, I think the one that maybe just is a little bit more correct as an overall skeletal build and design is probably going to be a little bit more so that solid red U and 1. Sorry, that red doe and 1. I think that red doe definitely comes at the ground a little bit more comfortable and how she's put together. I like the where her legs, just the where she's built. They're out of her shoulder. She doesn't seem so upright and abrupt there through her shoulder. I wish this one had the really had a bit of had a stronger top line in comparison. But again, I think a really, really cool looking female who's built right. She's got plenty of rib, plenty of body. She fills it in really well, really, really clean. Definitely really good. Very good. And then we study number two. Yes, we've got lots of opinions here today, and that's good. You should. I think initially at first I had to place first. I think that's one that I think, again, looks pretty flawless in how she's put together. She's fitted really nicely, presented extremely well. For me, if you really study that one for her shoulder there through her front, I think that one's gonna maybe just gonna have just a little bit less give there through her front 1/3. I think that's one that needs to be just set back just a touch there through her shoulder. I think that's a really cool looking paint dough. But again, I think she just gets just a tick rigid off both ends of her skeleton. But again, two really, really high quality females who carry a lot of good pieces to them. Definitely appreciate both those girls. All right. Then we roll here into the bottom pair of some more commercially looking kind of females. Going to be generated a little bit more so for their production quality. Again, I think you've got one that's maybe got a little bit more extension, a little bit more femininity there from her head. The other one kind of maybe just gets a little bit more too jammed up for me. So I think I like the long cape doe in 3 to go third. I think it's a pretty comfortable place to leave her again. One who I think's definitely got some femininity and some appearance there up through her front 1/3. I don't think she's just a bit more robust and more opened up there through her round rib shape. One who I think needs to be fixed a little bit there from a skeletal standpoint. I'm not in love with the way she's put together. That one gets a little bit too turned out there on her front toes. It needs to come down at the ground. I just to take better there from as far as the stoutness goes there from her as far as the bone, her bone work. Now, for me, again, I think this is one that just simply has a bit more to her in comparison to the doe that we round out the class with. And like I mentioned previously, this one just needs to be balanced up a lot better. She gets real short and coarse there through her head and neck. One who I think just needs to be fixed a little bit. Needs to be fixed a little bit as far as how she's put together in her balance. One who I think just gets a bit off there in her top. And I bet if we got our hands on this one to really study for the amount of genuine width and power she's carrying up high, I think she's certainly going to struggle. I think that's one who's just seen some better days and just looking up to be a little bit too mature for me today. And just really, again, not having a lot of pieces that I'm super impressed with. I definitely think I will admit, though, that she is a really deep-sided kind of female who's going to be able to maintain her body pretty well. But I just kind of wish there was more to this female and she was just stretched out and just kind of graced up a little bit to be a little more elegant. Okay. So again, that's my thoughts on this class. I know I'm getting called out a little bit for not starting that paint dough. And at first, I definitely had her first, but I kind of changed her here last minute. And I'll be honest, judges do that sometimes. They'll have one in their mind and they're like, this one won the whole thing. Then they see another one come in. I remember I judged a steer show last year here in Southwest Kansas that, yeah, I thought we had one that won it all, and then I thought we had one that got reserved, and then we rolled in with 2 others, and I was like, where were you the whole time? But again, so it goes 2-1. Oh, sorry, 2-1. Haha. Just kidding. This one has it placed 2-1. I placed it 1-2. But again, so that you can go 2-1, 3-4, or you can go 1-2, either way. So I would have gotten a 49 on this class, if that helps you guys at all. So again, they only cut you 1. But yes, having all 4 on the screen definitely helps you out. I apologize for not having that for all of them. But very true. So again, they only cut you 1 on the top, 6 in the middle. You got to recognize those 2 down in the bottom need to stay in the bottom. And then it goes 3-4 with a cut of 2. So very good. So again, just some different stuff. And I think it's been kind of fun with all the goats and stuff and the ewes. So, but that is all the classes I have for you guys tonight. Kind of sad this is coming to the end. This is the end of our time together, but I've really appreciated you guys having me. It's been a lot of fun to do this, and I hope to eventually kind of make it out to New York to come